Hey, what's going on? Welcome to my newest video. You clicked on it and now you're watching it, and I really appreciate it. That's super cool of you. If you're here, you might know me as the guy who goes around looking for movies in the wild. Is there a movie over here? Is there a movie over here? Where are the movies? You see me do that. Now you want to know, are the movies any good? So let's find out. The first one I wanted to talk about on the list here is The Dead Zone. Surprisingly, I've only seen this one time before, but it is fantastic. I love this movie. One of the better Stephen King adaptations, and dare I say, maybe the best David Cronenberg movie right there. Christopher Walken is in a car accident. He's in a coma for 5 years. He loses his girlfriend moves on, and it's kind of a horror movie, but it's more just a drama about a guy who's sad. It captures loneliness so well. I think it's so well made. And I highly recommend this film right here if you've never seen it, The Dead Zone. Before I move on, I wanted to mention the sound design in this movie is fantastic. There's such like an unsettling silence throughout most of the film. Next one here is The Driver. This is really good. I was looking for this for a very long time, so I was very happy to find it right there. Bruce Dern plays a cop, and what's funny about Bruce Dern is you might not know he was like a badass in the 70s. If you know him now, like his more modern roles, he kind of just plays a confused old guy. And yes, he is old, but someone like, say, Clint Eastwood is basically the same character he's always been, just an older version, where Bruce Dern, he used to be like more like macho and now is like the old confused guy. So you might not know that about Bruce Dern, and he is fantastic in this. All his lines are like quotable and like almost poetic. So with that movie, I say come for the car chases, stay for Bruce Dern, because it is really good. Directed by Walter Hill, who I feel is just like a very solid director. What's funny about this movie, and I've noticed this before on old VHSs, is it says 131 minutes, which is 2 hours and 11 minutes, which seems awfully long for a movie like this, but it's just incorrect. Someone actually wrote on the tape, 1.5 hours. I noticed that with the thing too. The VHS, for whatever reason, says it's like 40 minutes longer than it actually is. Next one here, Moving Violations. This is another car chase movie, but this one's kind of more by the numbers. It's a story you've seen before where like this guy's a drifter and he meets a young girl and they become a couple, and they see a crooked cop commit a murder, so then the cop has to like knock them off. Overall, pretty solid if you want that type of like, you know, 1970s car chase drive-in movie feel. I had a pretty fun time with Moving Violation. This one right here, The Soldier, this was kind of generic. It had some good action, but it doesn't really stand out, and you can skip this one. Nothing too special with that one right there. This one, The Food of the Gods. I watched this for 10 minutes and realized I wasn't gonna like it, so I just turned it off. It's very silly. It's like giant animals attacking people, and just the way it's filmed, like it takes itself way too serious for how goofy it actually is, and it just totally turned me off. So I stopped watching The Food of the Gods after 10 minutes. This one, I didn't give enough credit to, The Night House. I thought that was going to be kind of weak, but it turned out to be like pretty scary and like kind of hardcore, like horror. Okay, so maybe not super hardcore, but it is scary, and I liked it. So this girl right here, her husband kills himself, and she's kind of having a hard time, and she's seeing like his ghost, and then she discovers that he had built a secret house like across the lake, and there's like weird stuff going on. Next up is Millions. I didn't actually finish this movie. I watched it for 10 minutes, and it just seemed like it was going to be way too wholesome for what I'm usually in the mood for, so I skipped that. But if I'm missing out on something great, let me know there. This one, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. I saw this in the theater and haven't seen it since, so I rewatched it. And it's alright. It's kind of weird how it's rated R, but there's not much going on that deserves an R rating. But if you want to watch a PG-13 type horror movie, then you can do worse than this one. It's alright. April Fool's Day, I rewatched this. I haven't seen that in a long time, the 1980s horror movie. And that is really good. There's a twist to that I don't want to give away, but rewatching it, knowing the ending, I was thinking like, okay, that kind of doesn't make sense, like what they're showing us, because what we later find out. But it ties up those loose ends, I say like 99%. Some of it still is a little weird in my opinion, but I'm not going to take that away from the movie. I do recommend the 1980s April Fool's Day. And I was going to watch the remake from the 2000s, but it got such bad reviews, I don't think I want to waste my time on that. And this right here is kind of embarrassing. I've never seen Juno before, and I watched it, and it's very good. Yeah, I don't know. I just had never seen it. Good time, though. 5 easy pieces. I've been meaning to see this for a while. There's a pretty famous scene where Jack Nicholson is in a diner, and he's trying to get like his chicken sandwich the way he wants it, and he's like yelling at the waitress. And this is very ahead of its time. You've seen the story now 1,000 times before. He's an artist who's not really living up to his potential, and he kind of just wants to be like a slacker type guy. It kind of set the blueprint for many independent films to come after, but at the time there weren't really movies like with that plot line. I found it a little boring at times though, but it is a good movie. This next one right here, Cadillac Man, is a lot different than I thought it would be. It's entertaining. It's not laugh out loud hysterical or anything, but it's an okay time. I thought it would be more about Robin Williams wheeling and dealing as a used car salesman, kind of like the movie Used Cars, but it's more just about Tim Robbins like holds him hostage at the car dealership. I didn't expect that from the movie. This next one here, High Spirits. I haven't seen this one in a very long time. It's another one that's not like laugh out loud hysterical in my opinion, but it is entertaining. I like High Spirits more than Cadillac Man. There's horror elements to this, but it's basically a comedy. But it does get a little creepy towards the end. Basically, Peter O'Toole here, he has an old castle, and he pretends that there's ghosts in it to get like people to come and pay money like tourists. But it turns out there actually are ghosts. Oh no! And then like, you know, Steve Guttenberg falls in love with a ghost. Beverly D'Angelo is in this, and she's really mean the first half of the movie. It's kind of weird to see that. And Liam Neeson has an early role in this right here. I recommend this if you're like me, you like 80s fluff movies. It's kind of hard to find though. I'm not sure if it's streaming, and the DVD is out of print. Okay, I got more movies over here, but before we look at those, let's take a look at these toys right here. I kind of feel bad. In the last video, everyone was mentioning how cool they are, and yes, they are cool. But I can't take credit for these. I have roommates, and I am not in charge of the decorating. If I was to decorate, it would just probably be like stacks of DVDs everywhere. And like instead of chairs, people would be sitting on like jugs, and the table would be old discarded pizza boxes. So yes, I can't take credit for this stuff, but it is really cool. Lots of like Florida stuff, and here's Simpsons. And if you do like stuff like this, my roommate Jessica, this is her Instagram, Be Bright Vintage. We got some McDonald's. You gotta have the turtles down there. More Florida stuff. Gators. Ah! Now back to the film strips here. We got Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I saw this once before, but wanted to rewatch it before the new one came out. Is it called Enter the Spider-Verse? I'm pretty sure that's the name. And I saw the new one in the theater. I actually like this first one a little bit more. People are loving the new one. Maybe a slight spoiler, but the Spider-Man Spider-Verse movies are going to be a trilogy. And I don't usually like the middle movies of planned trilogies as much, because it's just too much conflict, I guess. I like watching the characters just like start out and hang out. That's why the first Star Wars is my favorite. Like the first 45 minutes of the first Star Wars to me is so amazing. And Empire is actually the one I want to watch the least. I know that sounds crazy, and there's people mad, they're slamming their keyboards right now. That's just how I feel. But yeah, I do recommend the new Spider-Man movie, and the first one is slightly better in my opinion, so watch that. Okay, next up is another one I'm embarrassed I've never seen before. City Slickers. I saw like 15 minutes of it on Comedy Central, but I've never sat down and watched the whole thing. And it is really good in my opinion. They just don't make movies like this. Comedy for adults that deals with like adult topics, but it's not like a Hallmark Channel movie or something. And I think that's a really just well-made comedy movie that's like heartfelt. They just don't make as many comedy movies as much anymore. And if they do, they're just like have a different tone. They're mostly about like people in their 20s who are sarcastic and depressed. Yeah, so anyways, City Slickers, good time right there. I've never seen this either, How to Train Your Dragon. Part of the reason I wanted to see that is because Universal Studios, they're having a new park open, and there's going to be like a big Nintendo World, which seems like it could be really cool. And then part of the park is going to have a How to Train Your Dragon section. And I enjoyed this movie, a very good time, very entertaining and fun. The animation isn't quite on par with Pixar, but I enjoyed this movie, How to Train Your Dragon, more than Wall-E. Wall-E, I've never seen that either. I watched it for the first time, and it's good, but kind of didn't hold my attention. It's very strange. The first 20 minutes, there's no dialogue, and that's fine. That's the way they wanted to go with the movie. It just wasn't for me 100%. The movie also has some themes I don't really get the point of. Like, I get what they're showing us. I'm just not sure why it's in the movie. He's on a planet that's covered in trash. Okay, that's a possibility for sure. And then he goes into space, and the humans are living on his spaceship, and like they're all obese, and they're going around on scooters. They don't walk anywhere. Okay, I get that. That's a possibility. But why are you showing us this? Like, it offers no answers. It's just saying, everybody's fat. The planet is trashed. Yeah, so I don't know. Wall-E wasn't my absolute favorite, but it's not bad. I enjoyed this Tron Legacy. I've seen the first one, of course, but never saw the sequel, and it's pretty good. It's a little too slick for my taste. A movie with like similar look, just way lower budget, is The Running Man, and obviously I'd rather watch The Running Man than Tron Legacy, but this wasn't bad. Now this one here, Super Troopers 2, is surprisingly better than I thought it would be. It's not like the best thing ever, but it's okay for a sequel that came out like 17 years after the first one. It's all right. No real moments where I was laughing hysterically out loud or anything, but it's pretty good. These next two here are about intelligent doggos. This first one, Baxter. This is a French movie, and the dog has an inner monologue, and it kind of tries to play itself as realistic, like what a dog would be thinking if a dog thought like in those terms. And it's kind of a horror movie, but not really. No one's really getting killed or anything, but he does think like evil thoughts. And he jumps from like owner to owner. He keeps getting adopted by new people until eventually he gets adopted by this kid who is evil. And yeah, this is a pretty good movie. Definitely like well shot and stuff. It's short. It's only an hour and 18 minutes, I think. But I had a good time with this one. And next up, Watchers. Another one. I can't believe I've never seen this. And I've read the Dean Koontz book, Watchers. This is like a very cheap version of that, but I don't care. This is a very good, like, cheesy 80s horror movie. The only criticism would be that the monster, like, they hardly ever show it on screen. That would be my criticism. It's kind of a horror movie that seems like, it's R-rated, but it's kind of made for kids. It would be perfect, like, if you were in the 7th grade to watch it at a sleepover. And I like that one a lot. One of Corey Haim's better movies, I would say in his top 5. I watched another one called Prayer of the Roller Boys, and I didn't like that movie. It didn't really hold my attention. I thought I would like it. I thought it would be the right type of cheese, but not really. I also streamed a movie called The Curse with Will Wheaton from the 80s, and that was a pretty fun time. Kind of slightly forgettable, but I like seeing like these famous actors when they're young in these horror movies. It's a fun time. So I guess I recommend The Curse. Another one I streamed is called Silent Scream, and I definitely recommend that one. It's from 1979, not to be confused with a 1980s Silent Scream movie that's about abortion. The 1979 Silent Scream movie is kind of just like a Psycho ripoff. This college girl is renting a room in like a mansion, and there's kooky people in there. So watch Silent Scream. I think you can watch that one on YouTube. This next one right here, Pale Blood. I didn't like this. This is a boring movie. I'm only showing it because I thought it was interesting that the band Agent Orange, who's a 1980s like surf punk band, well, they were in the early 80s, but then when this movie came out, they kind of changed their sound. They sound like a college rock band, like their replacements, but they look like a glam band. The lead singer almost looks like Boy George. It's just interesting, they put out this really good surf punk album, and then like maybe 5 or 6 later, they're like totally different. But the music is still good. Yeah, the Agent Orange songs in this are good, it's just not really punk anymore. This show, Castle Rock, I gave this a chance, and I liked the first 6 episodes or so, and then I felt it totally jumped the shark. I shouldn't be surprised. J.J. Abrams is involved. I hate to poop on JJ, but oh my god. This reminds me of like the last season of Lost. We're just like 7 episodes in. They introduced time travel for some reason. And it's like, alright, I'm done with this. And it's based on Stephen King, but like, I didn't get any of the references. The town Castle Rock. And like someone would be like, oh, Jack Torrance, he's my uncle. But like, it has nothing to do with the plot. I didn't see the point. I'm getting angry here. Sorry, Castle Rock. This one, The Cat in the Hat. I watched this just like out of morbid curiosity. I know this guy from Boston, Alan Richardson, and I think on Twitch he was watching this every day for a year just as a goof. And God bless him, because it is hard to get through. I was kind of just annoyed by this movie. This right here, Riff Tracks, Night of the Living Dead. To be honest with you, I'm not sure how I feel about Mystery Science Theater 3000 and Riff Tracks. Sometimes it's good, and then sometimes it kind of seems pointless. It's very hit or miss for me. But I do like the original Night of the Living Dead movie. So, you know, it was interesting to watch the Riff Tracks. Not like hysterical or anything, but funny enough. This movie right here, Duel to the Death, is a fun time. Good martial arts movie. There's lots of blood, dismemberments, exploding ninjas. So if you want a fun time, check out Duel to the Death. Now this next one here, Maniac. I've been looking for this for a while and finally found it. But I hate to say I was a little bit disappointed. I found it just to be like too depressing and gross, and kind of didn't make logical sense that Elijah Wood is just a pure psychopath with no charisma in this movie, but keeps getting all these dates, and like, you know, these women like come home with him. Didn't really make much sense in my opinion. I do like the original more because of Tom Savini's special effects, but I'm not even that in love with the original. And this next one here, I'm sorry Danny, but I wasn't that into Freeway. It was a lot different than what I was expecting. Apparently it's a play on Little Red Riding Hood, but the only thing that's like Little Red Riding Hood is they show like Little Red Riding Hood animation in the front, and then she carries a red basket. But I didn't really make the connection besides that. It's more of a satire movie like Natural Born Killers. It just comments on 90s violence, basically. And it didn't fully work for me. I was hoping for more just a traditional thriller type movie like this right here, Joyride 2, which I did like. Almost as much as the first one. This is a pretty good, I think, straight to video movie right here, Joyride 2. These are pretty fun. So the last thing I want to talk about here is The Toxic Avenger. But before I get into that, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Leave me a comment. I appreciate it. So yeah, the Toxic Avenger, the first one, absolute classic. I love the first Toxic Avenger. The second one obviously isn't going to be as good, but it's not bad. There's a little bit too much goofiness going on, but there's an okay fight early on, and there's a good car chase late in the movie, and there's some good gore. The third one really dips in quality. It starts off in a video store, and that part is awesome, but then the rest of the movie is pretty bad. Now, this is going to be controversial. A lot of people like this movie. I think part 4 is awful. It is really bad in my opinion. It just seems so cheap and low budget and trashy. Like, if your movie has Ron Jeremy in it and you're not Orgasmo, I don't want to see it. They also make fun of special needs kids too much, which I think is just in bad taste. It can be done right if it's like South Park, which, you know, Trey Parker is actually funny. But this movie says the R word like 100 times, and it just gets to be like, all right, this didn't age very well at all. The movie also seems very, very cheap. It plays up on the stereotype like, oh, trouble movies are supposed to be bad too much, and it just makes it look amateur. I was talking to my friend Mark about this, and I feel bad saying it, but I think Lloyd Kaufman might actually be a bad low-budget filmmaker, because Toxic Avenger, the first one, I think cost $600,000, which is kind of a lot of money for a movie of that quality, but it's still a great time. So that's not too bad. But then Toxic Avenger 2 cost $2 million. $2 million for Toxic Avenger 2. Do you know how much Reservoir Dogs cost? $1.2 million. What's the higher quality film there? Reservoir Dogs or Toxic Avenger 2? And once again, I don't mean to be crapping on Toxic Avenger and Lloyd too badly. It's just funny to me. Oh my gosh. Do you know how much El Mariachi cost? $5,000. Do you know how much Clerks? Do you know how much Clerks cost? I think it like $30,000, maybe $26,000. Toxic Avenger 2, $2 million. Anyways, to wrap up this Toxic Avengers rant, first one, awesome. Second one, okay. Third one, pretty bad. Fourth one, I don't like at all, but it does have fans, so I don't understand it. Okay, that's it for this video. See you next time.